The thing Priya Anand believed most completely about people, the belief she had carried through 2 careers, 1 international move, and 5 years on the volunteer committee of the Ashford Grand Luxury Condominium HOA, was that everyone, given enough information, would do the right thing. This belief was about to cost her a weekend, $200 in certified mail fees, and her certainty about nearly everything. Quick note before we begin. This is a fictional, dramatized story for education and entertainment. Any resemblance to real people is coincidental. This story is inspired by common HOA situations people talk about online. All names and details here are fictional. Priya had been the chair of the Ashford Grand Charitable Event Subcommittee for 3 years, a role that did not pay, did not grant parking privileges, and did not, despite what the title might suggest, give her any actual authority over the HOA board. What it gave her was a spreadsheet she updated daily, a folder on her laptop with 47 subfolders, and the satisfaction of knowing that the Ashford Grand Annual Spring Gala, a fundraiser for a children's orphan support foundation in the city, ran with a precision that made the building manager nervous. Every ticket sold, every dollar logged, every donation receipt filed. This was the part of Priya's nature that drove her husband quietly insane, her absolute compulsion to document everything, not because she didn't trust people, but because she trusted systems, and systems needed paper trails. She had printed and laminated the gala's event rules. She had them in a binder. She had the binder in her tote bag the evening Miriam Holt walked up to the check-in table and presented herself as a guest who should not have to pay. Miriam was on the HOA board. She was not a sponsor of the gala. She had not purchased a ticket. She had not been listed on any complimentary guest roster, which Priya had reviewed twice that afternoon. What Miriam did have was a posture that suggested she found the check-in table mildly inconvenient, and the particular kind of patience that is not really patience at all, but the certainty that inconveniences resolve themselves in your favor if you simply wait long enough. She told Sasha Romero, the event coordinator managing the check-in table, that board members should be admitted free of charge because they had approved the use of the community room for this event, and approving the use of the room was itself a kind of contribution to the charity. Sasha looked at Priya. Priya looked at her binder. There was no such policy. Priya could say this calmly because she had checked, because of course she had checked, because she checked everything. The gala was a ticketed fundraiser. Every dollar from ticket sales went directly to the foundation. Board members, under the HOA's own charitable event guidelines, page 4, section 2.3, which Priya had printed out, received no automatic admission benefit. Miriam's expression did not change when Priya explained this. It settled into something that was almost but not quite a smile. She said she would look into it with Gerald, the board president, and stepped away from the table. Priya watched her go and made a note in her phone, timestamp 6:47 p.m., because she had learned that conversations like this one benefited from timestamps. Gerald Okafor arrived at the gala 40 minutes later, ticket in hand, purchased the previous week. He stopped at the check-in table when Sasha mentioned, quietly, that Miriam had raised a question about board admission. Gerald looked at his ticket. He looked at Priya. He said, with the careful neutrality of someone who has presided over enough HOA meetings to recognize a situation before it fully forms, that board members had no standing admission benefit for charitable events. The gala was not an HOA function. It was a fundraiser using HOA facilities under a temporary use permit. He said this clearly. He said it in front of 3 people who heard it. Priya noted this too. Timestamp 7:31 p.m. What Miriam did next is the kind of move that looks reasonable from the inside and absurd from the outside. She returned to the gala not as a guest, but as a board member conducting what she described, in a follow-up email sent at 10:15 p.m. that same night, as a routine oversight visit to verify the use of common area facilities complied with HOA regulations. She walked through the event. She ate. There is no gentle way to say this. She sat at a table. She consumed a catered meal that had been purchased using charity funds, and she left without making a donation. The total cost of the meal per attendee was $42, which Priya knew because she had the catering invoice. She had always had the catering invoice. She had it in subfolder 31. What's striking about situations like this one is how rarely anyone in the HOA ever asks, who actually benefits when board members blur the line between oversight authority and personal entitlement. Because the answer in this case wasn't the board. It was no one. Priya did not send an angry email. This is important. She wanted to. She drafted one at midnight, read it back, and deleted it in 4 sections. Instead, she sent a formal written inquiry to the HOA board, addressed to all 5 members, asking for written clarification of the policy governing board member access to charitable events held in common areas. She attached page 4, section 2.3. She attached the catering invoice. She attached a photograph, taken by a Gala attendee who had posted it publicly to the building's resident social feed before Priya had even seen it, of Miriam seated at table 7 with a full plate. She had not asked for the photograph. It arrived in her inbox with a message from a neighbor she had never spoken to. This was the moment the story stopped being about one meal. Let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. If you're finding value in this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you've ever experienced a similar HOA or neighborhood situation, feel free to share your story in the comments. The photograph did something Priya had not anticipated. Because it was already on the resident social feed, other residents saw it before Priya's formal inquiry even reached the board. By the following morning, she had 17 messages from neighbors. 2 of them were from unit owners who had served on the Charitable Events Committee in prior years and who had very specific memories of being told, in prior years, that board members could not be comped at charity events. One of them had a 3-year-old email from a previous board member confirming exactly this policy. It arrived in Priya's inbox at 8:52 a.m. on a Sunday. She put it in subfolder 48, which she created on the spot. Here is where the legal framework that governs the situation becomes relevant, and it matters because it reframes what looks like a dispute about $42 into something with real governance consequences. HOA boards have a fiduciary duty to the community. They are legally obligated to act in the financial interest of all homeowners, not in their personal interest. Using charity funds, even indirectly, by consuming resources at a charity fundraiser without paying, while acting in a purported board capacity is not oversight. It is a misuse of authority that, depending on state law, can constitute a breach of fiduciary duty. An HOA attorney Priya consulted with the following week, for 40 minutes over the phone, was very precise about this. The attorney said that if the board had a documented policy, and a board member violated it while claiming it was official business, the community had standing to demand an accounting. Not just an apology, an accounting. Priya had not planned to consult an attorney. She had planned to send a formal inquiry, receive a written policy clarification, and close the matter with a note in her files. But Miriam's email, the one sent at 10:15 p.m. framing her presence at the gala as official oversight, changed the calculation. Because if the board was going to put that in writing, then what existed in writing was a board member using the claim of official business to access resources she hadn't paid for at a fundraiser benefiting children. Priya printed the email. She put it in subfolder 48 alongside the photograph and the 3-year-old policy confirmation. She labeled the subfolder Miriam Holt Gala Incident. She did this with the methodical calm of someone who has been documenting things long enough to know that what you document tends, eventually, to matter. The formal inquiry Priya sent to the board produced a response in 11 days, slower than the HOA's own bylaws required, which specified responses to written homeowner inquiries within 7 business days, a detail Priya noted with the precision of someone who had read the bylaws twice and flagged the relevant passages. The response, signed by Gerald, was careful. It did not mention Miriam by name. It confirmed that board members did not receive complimentary access to charitable events held in common areas. It confirmed that the gala had operated under a temporary facility use permit, not as a board function. It said the board took the matter of HOA resources seriously and that any concerns about specific incidents could be submitted in writing for board review. Priya read this response, standing at her kitchen counter. She read it twice. Then she sent a second formal inquiry, this one asking the board whether any reimbursement to the charitable foundation was planned for costs incurred during the purported oversight visit. She sent it certified mail point 3 weeks later, without a public announcement. Without any fanfare, a check arrived at the foundation's administrative office. It was drawn from Miriam Holt's personal account. It was for $84, double the cost of the meal. There was no cover letter. There was no explanation. Sasha Romero called Priya when it arrived and read her the memo line on the check. It said only, event contribution. Priya sat with this for a long moment. Then she opened her phone, created subfolder 49, and took a photograph of Sasha's text message describing the check. What Priya believed at the end of this was not exactly what she had believed at the beginning. She still believed that people, given enough information, would sometimes do the right thing. She no longer believed they would do it without documentation. The movement of 17 neighbors, 3 years of policy history, and 1 photograph toward a single certified letter is not a dramatic ending. It doesn't have a gavel or a verdict. What it has is $84 in a foundation account that wasn't there before, and a community that now knows the difference between a board member exercising oversight and a board member helping themselves. That distinction, quiet as it is exactly the kind of thing HOA governance depends on people understanding. Priya's story ended in quiet justice. A check, no cameras, no credit, but thousands of HOA residents right now are in the middle of something similar and don't know yet that they have options. That a fiduciary duty is a legal obligation, not a suggestion. That a certified letter is more powerful than an angry comment thread. Every like you leave on this video helps us show up in their search results. Every subscription keeps you informed before it's your turn. This community we're building here, it matters. Thank you for being part of it.